Firstly, just a little bit about Kizo and what we do. So Kizo is a software company. We have two different products, Induct and Train, which is used by quite a lot of large companies, a lot in construction, civil engineering, things like that. We've got companies like PAYE and Cemex on board to help with their contractors. And roughly one new contractor is inducted every 20 minutes with Induct and Train. We also have Read and Sign, which is a compliance solution used by some of the most heavily regulated industries like airlines and things like that. With Read and Sign, roughly one new notice is sent every 3 minutes. So a quick breakdown of what we'll cover. So I'll go over the basics of contractor management, what it means, use cases. We'll have a look at traditional methods, some of the challenges and sticking points that anyone might have faced within contractor management, what the role of technology is in helping with those challenges, and then some of the best practices for actually implementing a contractor management system. So what is it? Contractor management, as you can see on the screen, coordinating external parties who are hired to perform specific tasks or projects for an organisation. This includes ensuring that things are completed on time, within budget, company policies and procedures are all adhered to, and it should come as no surprise that improper contractor management can lead to some issues. This is just a snapshot of some of the use cases and industries that contractor management is used quite frequently in. So obviously, as we know, construction, subcontracting, specific areas of work. If you have a big project going on, you need specialists from electrical or different areas of construction. That would be a common one. Some other examples, another big one is events. Obviously, events tend to be an industry where a lot of different specialist fields come together to create an event. And then you've obviously got things like aviation, facilities, healthcare, manufacturing, which are all frequent users of typical contractor management solutions.
Right. So just to quickly go over what is mandatory to actually get a contractor onto your site. So first thing is very straightforward. You need to ensure every person attending your site or going to do work are adhering to your policies. They need to be trained up on any activities they will be performing, procedures, how the tasks need to be performed. In return, you need to be compliant and being able to prove that those points were followed. If you are in construction, big part of what you need is the CSCS card checks, which can be a quite manual and labor-intensive tasks if you're not using a digital solution. Each person going onto your site need to have the valid licenses, certificates, as well as documentation to be able to carry out the job role they're there to do. Now, next up is the flexible managing while on site. So obviously, once the contractors get on site, they become someone's responsibility to ensure that the expectations are met. So these things can fall under things like risk mitigation, quality safety, standards, deadlines, time budget, policies, procedures, and compliance. So those are usually the key pain points and hardest bits to oversee if you're using the older methods of contractor management. Now, let's talk about some of the traditional methods that we see in the industry that we work in. So most commonly, those entail manual tracking of documents. So we're talking spreadsheets, paperwork, and project details. So this leads to inaccuracies, inefficiencies, as well as difficulties to update things in real time. Now, with using email and phone communications, a lot of the time we see there's communication gaps. You have missed updates. You have difficulty in maintaining clear audit trail, as well as when you go when you're using paper-based contracts, you always get delays in things like signing, loss of documentation as well. It makes it extremely difficult for everyone to collaborate effectively, which we find the biggest pain points when you use the traditional methods, when a lot of the time the responsibility of each of those factors lie within one or two persons. So let's talk about the more typical challenges. So first one is very straightforward: lack of transparency. It's really difficult to maintain real-time visibility and tracking. It's the same in whatever industry you work. If you are paper-based and you use a lot of spreadsheets, there's never going to be a clear transparency when anyone can have a look and find what is needed. Compliance is challenging because to ensure adherence to policy, safety, as well as legal requirements, again, it comes back to the point that if you're getting audited, you need a lot of time to get everything prepared and get everything in line. Standardization, I've seen instances where you have 20 different sites under the same organization, and they do onboarding, training, performance evaluation completely differently. Yes, they're from the same company, they follow the same policies and procedures, but you have 20 different spreadsheets, different formats. It's a bit of a mismatch. Communication is the next big thing, where you don't always get clear and consistent communication between contractors and the teams that you work with when you are using all methods, mainly because, again, it's very hard to keep on top of it all. Sensitive information is another big item where contractors have access to internal information and must be handled carefully, and vice versa. So a lot of the organizations go through so many people at any given time. It becomes a bit of a burden and a GDPR nightmare to keep on top of those sensitive details. Access control. It's hard to control who has access to what, need to prevent unauthorized access and breaches. So what that means is that if you are working with paper-based infrastructure, you will always have that issue where people without need to know has access to your documents. I think there was a good case last year where someone left some confidential papers on a bus stop. So that's exactly what you mean. If you think of massive government bodies who this happens to, when you deal with contractors, that always happens regardless of where you go. Infrastructure, another big part is that scalability is difficult, as often it's a person's jobs to manage, as well as it leaves limited room for expansion. So again, digitalization is so much easier to upscale. If you blow out and you employ twice the people, you don't need to employ twice the employees to manage those details and resources. And then as I've been going through, it kind of boils down to resource and time. It's the scaling up and down can be quite complex with the old methods. Digital, not so much.
So based on those sort of pain points that Ignas has mentioned, this is just going to cover some of the points that what the role of tech is in easing those challenges, basically. So number one, and probably the biggest one, is centralizing everything. So you have a single point of engagement for not only managers, but those involved in projects, storing data, any other information. Everything is housed under one location. Automated workflows, so reminders, training, notifications, document updates, CSCS card checks, everything like that can be taken care of behind the scenes. Those sort of small niggly tasks that sometimes get in the way, they're all sort of automated and just sort of happening as you go about your business. Contractor profiles is another quite big one. So you can store all the documents, licenses, and sort of personal info, and build up a portfolio for contractor companies. So let's say you're managing 50 different contractor companies, or however many it is. You can change and request info for all of them at the same time. You don't have to go back to them individually. And it saves you sort of manually reissuing stuff. And then compliance tracking, so safeguarding your company and being able to prove that training and important policies have been read. So if you have any disputes on site about a particular incident or something that someone said that isn't entirely accurate, you've got you're safeguarding yourself with the evidence backed up on the contractor profile. So hey, look, you know, you've had this reminder, you've had this training. I can see that you took this out on XYZ date, and it sort of safeguards the company essentially. Second lot, data analytics. So this one's obviously quite self-explanatory, but it allows you to make a little bit more informed decisions about current and future projects. Document storage, I've covered this one a couple of times, but much easier for sharing. Protecting versions is a big one. As Ignas mentioned, standardization is a bit of an issue. So if you have loads of different sites and they're doing induction slightly differently, or processes aren't quite lining up, this is a way of protecting version types. So whatever the latest document uploaded on a system is, that'll be the one used for every site. Reducing risk of loss and also improving security also fall under that one. Scale and flexibility, again, as Ignas mentioned, oftentimes with contractor management and things like that, they tend to be actual full job roles for people to manage those projects. Whereas the role of tech in this instance is you can just scale it. Once you have the infrastructure in place and all those systems are working, everything's aligned, you can just scale it up and down as required. It doesn't require further resources from a human. Like I say, you can request documents from 100 different companies in the same time that you'd request it from one. And then also remote management. So if you do have someone that's going from site to site that needs to quickly, I don't know, they're on Bristol site and they quickly need to check something that's happening in Derby site or check some details, that's all accessible. They don't have to phone anyone up. Hey, can you have a look at this file? Can you check this for me? It's all there, and it's all, it can be sort of pulled up on whatever device that they're currently on.
So I'm gonna now quickly run over one of the case studies we carried out. So one of our customers, actually Formula One Auto Centers, if you own a car, I'm sure you've heard of them, came to us with an issue because they had, as talked in this webinar, they were all paper-based. So the way it worked, they had a central site in Midlands. Every employee that used to start with them had to make the trip to the central site, sit the induction, do the training, do all the paperwork. This usually consumed 3 days of that new starter's time. Company had to cover travel expenses, they had to cover accommodation, as well as additional sustenance like food, etc. Now, when they digitized, that all went away. Not only did they start saving on people having to travel to do the induction, to do the training, to get their paperwork processed, they saved on manpower, as well as just the convenience of having everything online where people can see the content at their own leisure. Now, based on the estimations that the centers have provided to us, the savings were in the 6 figures just from traveling. That's not accounting to the fact that now they freed up 5 employees that could have been repurposed into other areas of the business that needed them more than just keeping on top of expenses and arrangements and booking hotels and getting the travel sorted. So it was quite a big shift from their internal processes, and obviously when you can put that monetary value against it, it just shows how digitizing is the right way to go, by all means. Now, next up, we were going to talk about the essentials. So if you are thinking from going paper-based into digital world, or if you already started to make the transition, we need to cover the essentials, what you need from a digital platform. So you need a means. So a means to assign tasks, which is identify who is responsible for what work. You need to track completions of overall project progress. So you need to set up daily, weekly, and monthly tasks. So whoever is in charge of your digitizing process, you need to be very clear about those goals, and they need to be kept high indefinitely, because unfortunately, if you let them be, it can extend the process of your transition quite substantially. Workflow automations. Sorry, I'll cover site inductions first, otherwise it's backwards. So site inductions, things like reality checks, contractor coming to site with long periods between, may need information updating. So again, you need to set out clear criteria for yourself, how often those are going to be done. So you can, with most digital solutions, you can set up renewal periods so people keep updating their details and get reminded about needing to update those details. So again, it's just a time saver that you need to decide on when you're going digital. Workflow automation. So think about renewals, reissue of training, reminders and notifications. So these are all the key aspects you want to look in the system, basically. So if you don't have reminders and notifications, so it's just a manual process, but done on a laptop rather than on paper. So you want to make sure those automations are in place, that they will save you time rather than just turn paper into a online form that you still have to remind the person to do. You still have to reissue the training rather than being automatic. And then final thing, essential, is to ensure that the storage and data is accounted for. So documents and scalability, lots of man hours involved with manually inputting. So again, if it all can be digitized quickly, it's very good kind of starting point. Ensure that contractor profiles, portals are set up to your business needs, as well as you have plenty storage space, because usually contractors keep changing on and off. So you want to make sure there's no limitations on how much storage you are entitled to. So those are the key essentials. Obviously, these vary from business to business and needs are different, but these are the four that we kind of see most often.
Yeah, so what does that essentially boil down to then in the benefits of tech adoption? So if you were to switch to digital contractor management, what benefits can you expect? Visibility and transparency is probably the biggest one. So things like activities, job status, compliance status. Traditional methods give you a very limited view of what you can actually see. Like we said before, sometimes you can only view certain sites at one time. Tech gives you an entire view very quickly. Compliance and risk, legal and regulatory compliance with things like safety, being able to track and prove things have been read and acknowledged, and always keeping your records up to date so that the company is safeguarded. Having a holistic view, so being able to see top down everything that's happening in that project management world or contractor management world within your company from a single place. So rather than having to have loads of separate conversations or log into loads of different platforms, you've got one platform. I can manage it all, I can see it all, and I can do everything I need from that one place. It's management at scale. So as we mentioned before, with the scalability of tech, it's not only allows you to sort of manage it easier, but it also allows one person to manage a lot more than they could previously with a lot of traditional methods, with very little extra effort. Contractor experience as well is another big one. So flipping onto the other side of the fence for this, as well as you, the company who's actually using the contractor management system itself, the contractors themselves are going to have a much better experience. They're going to be, they're going to know exactly what's required from the company that they're being outsourced to do the work for. You know, I need X, Y, Z documents from you. I need this policy from you. I need this information from you. They know where they all stand with that. And similar to the company that's hiring them, they have one platform to log into to access all of that. So there's less time chasing things, less paper handouts, less sort of manually sort of going after things like that. And then the last one is leaning out the process. So if you have again, going back to the site example, 10 different sites, and each site requires an induction for a contractor to enter, but you've got a contractor that needs to go on 3 sites. Rather than that contractor sit through 3 inductions, because they've already completed the first one, they now only need to do the site induction, for example, because the system has logged it and understood, oh, hey, look, this person that's been to Derby already done the induction. He just needs to do the Bristol site induction. So you can lean out a lot of the sort of bulk of the content that people are doing and just sort of do what's necessary and what's required.
Right. So one big part of going digital is the ability for you to have time audits. So when you work with contractors, obviously they're not your own employees, you pay by the hour, and tracking their time spent on site can be quite tricky. You use paper-based, people forget to log it properly, people forget to sign it, it gets lost. You then need to do quite a bit of chasing when it comes to it, and without fail, that we see in the industry, there will always be issues with it. There will always be missed payment issues, or inaccurate data when it leads to contractors. Now, what digital platform can do for you, you can always get accurate detail. You will always get the most up-to-date info. It can be lost, it can be forgotten. If it is in place, it becomes automatic for you. At the end of the month, all you do is pull out an Excel report, whether you want to add up all the hours spent by a contractor company or per individual. It's Excel. You have the full control. It's very easy to manage, and it's very easy to do so. This is one of the bigger benefits of digital contractor. So, as well as, obviously, as mentioned, you can go down to each individual. What this also allows you to do, if you have things like, I don't know, fire safety training or whatever, you can just pull out the list of who is on site at any given time and use that for your benefit. It's an extra feature. It's not what the slide is about, but I thought I mentioned it's quite useful. And then finally, obviously, we looked at Goldman Sachs. They did a case study, and they found that 75 to 90% reduction in payment errors when you deploy a contract management system. So whether it's time or time saving, it's just a very powerful tool, because unfortunately computers are ones and zeros, so there's no interpretation. It's always correct when you go digital, and comical instances where a 5 looks like a 3. So again, that never happens in digital platforms. Now, another big aspect of it is the documentation and how you distribute it. So a good online system needs to ensure that you have the ability to decide which persons view it. So things can be as by a role. So by role, what we mean is you have contractors, you have visitors, you have internal employees. All of those might require different versions of the said documentation. So going digital can allow you that control, where you say, okay, so I want this group of people to receive one set of health and safety rules, this group of people another. And then you have a bit more where we go down to job roles, because obviously policies and procedures are very different between a welder and an office administrator. So again, to be able to take that away from you, to having to have different packs and system to do it automatically for you, is very good and powerful tool at your disposal. And then going on that, it's the certification of the actual contractor. So you need to ensure that each person who's coming to do your job role. So if you have a welder, you want to make sure they're certified welder. If you have a bricklayer, you want to make sure they're certified bricklayer. So that's why, if you can program it into your digital system and get those certificates in advance before the person is even onto your side, that again saves a large amount of time, as well as, not to mention, the benefits when it comes to auditing, when it comes to proving that all the checks were carried out effectively. So it's just overall good practice. Now, again, we looked at certain statistics when it comes to these two factors. So 80% of employees recreate existing documents since they can't find them in their company network. So a lot of businesses have Office 365 now, so it comes with OneDrive, but you will always have it's just how it works. Many folders, files don't get moved to the right one. People tend to recreate it, and it is a time sink, unfortunately. And then, on average, people spend 18 minutes searching for a document on the company network. So again, because there's so much of it, there's different departments, they have different folders, things live in different areas. It can be a lot of work just to get what you need, rather than having something effective that, tell what kind of class of document you're looking at, whether it's health and safety policy, whether it's timesheets, whether it's anything. So you want to ensure that when you go digital, those are taking into account. So it's not just blind kind of deep dive. So yeah.
Okay, so we're getting on to the actual best practice and the sort of tips for implementation, if you like. And this first one's going to sound very obvious, but it is quite a big one that we notice when we sort of onboard customers and we go through the integration process, is a strategy and roadmap, because every single company has different processes, different people, different information, and different things that they want to achieve. So the big thing that you need to decide as a user of this system is, what information do you actually want to digitize, and how will you achieve it? And what do you want the end result to be? So it's making sure that you find a partner who will assist with implementation. So rather than just buying a contractor management system, putting your information into it and not quite delivering the result you want because your process is slightly different and you need something extra, find someone who is willing to sort of help you through that process and sort of handhold you through, what do I need? How do I achieve it? What are the best things I can do? And sort of define a real roadmap moving forward. Company and tech. So select tools that best fit your company. So as we mentioned before in some of the essentials for digitizing, some of those may not be as important as others to you, but find ones which are. So find a solution that offers things like document storage, auto renewals, reporting, any of the time-saving features that allow you to quickly scale your contractor management process up quickly. So if you have more projects on the go or less projects on the go, it's no skin off your nose in sort of managing all of that. It's all still the same. It's all on the same platform. Also look for, when on the tech side, supplier assistance, things like recommendations. If there's any additions like white labeling, something like Kizo does with Induct and Train, and things like that. Communication and protocol. This is quite a big one, is making your staff aware of the why. So you don't want to surprise people with a new system. They don't really know what's going on. Why are we implementing this? What are the reasons? If everyone's on board with the why, they know exactly what information is or what's expected of them and how they should use it. And ultimately, that's going to help you get the best result and the best outcome out of spending the time. Also communicating it with people, sort of, rather than sort of shocking them with a new system. I think a lot of people, especially with new software and new tech, think that software and things like that optimize stuff is a way to replace them. Sometimes it's not. So look at a way of communicating what that actually means for them. So new protocol, new processes, offer some sort of training and a bit of insight into the system as well, and allow staff time to sort of familiarize with it, issue updates on progress, and just sort of keep them in the loop. Another one, which sounds probably quite obvious, is to monitor and evaluate. But this also means collecting feedback, both internally and externally. So a big opportunity that's missed is collecting feedback from actual contractors themselves, those that come onto your site that aren't technically employed by you, but maybe are temporarily. What is their experience of the system? Are they using it the way you expected them to use it? Again, every organization is different, which means every contractor company is probably going to be slightly different. So get their feedback as well, get their sort of thoughts on it, and make changes from there. I think Ignace is going to quickly mention this one because he's got a nice example for us.
Yeah, sorry. So this was one I was very, very keen to include, is to appoint a project lead. If you're going digital, make sure it lives with a person who is responsible for that. Nominate a candidate from your company to oversee the implementation. Different language options and thoughts can result in unsatisfactory system. So I have a great example. I'm not going to name the company, but they have a decision-making team of 20 persons who come from different departments, different areas. Obviously, they are digitizing. It's all great, but they all see it as something else. They don't have a central funnel. So what happens, the project gets so bloated and you have requirements fighting with each other because there isn't a single person to sit down and go, right, this is what we need. Well, actually, what you're saying, it's already covered by feature A, B, or C. It causes confusion. It causes a lot of wasted time. I have had meetings with the said organization on many, many occasions, and the meeting is for 2 hours. First hour and a half is spent recapping what everyone wants. So them talking between themselves, and another half an hour for us to suggest how we can digitize. So this can easily be avoided if you have a certain project lead. And I think it's a very important item to make note, as usually people would think, okay, so more people means better results. Not necessarily. It gets really disjointed, and the end result might not even be what you were expecting in the first place, because basically too many cooks in one kitchen, nothing runs. So yeah, something to just bear in mind.